Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm sharing a story that's a little different from what we usually talk about. It's a true story about a woman who went through an incredibly tough year, a year that would have broken many people. Instead, this lady found strength and learned some valuable lessons from which I think we can all take something. This is the story of Grace and her very terrible, often horrible year from hell. It all started with Grace's father, a man of incredible resilience. For the past 10 years, he's been battling a rare blood cancer, undergoing continuous monthly chemotherapy treatments. But despite the grueling regimen of chemo, he hadn't been taken down by the disease. He's continued to fight, stay active, and live his life to the fullest. No one would guess he's in his mid-80s. However, as the years went on, he began to need more care and support at home. Grace's parents had been married for 65 years, a lifetime of love and partnership. Now they faced this challenge together, with Grace and her mother becoming his support system and caregivers. This role was both rewarding and demanding. It was their honor to care for him, and they embraced it with love and dedication. At times it was overwhelming, but they pushed through, happy he was a fighter and glad for the early diagnosis, cutting-edge medical care, and precious time they got to be together. Little did Grace know, the year was only beginning to test her. A few months later, Grace was driving home from work when she suddenly felt numbness in her face, and her vision started to blur. The steering wheel seemed so far away, and her thoughts were jumbled. She knew she was headed for the freeway, but she couldn't figure out how to get there. Grace knew something was very wrong. She quickly pulled her car over to the side of the road and called 911. The ambulance arrived quickly, and they rushed her to the hospital. By the time she arrived, Grace was slurring her words. Doctors immediately gave her an injection of a clot-busting drug. Less than 1 hour later, the fog lifted from her brain and she began to speak coherently again. Miraculously, Grace had no after effects of the stroke. None. She was kept in the hospital for observation, but was soon discharged to return home and to work. Grace was fortunate, but it was a terrifying wake-up call. But life wasn't done testing Grace yet. One night, she was jolted awake by the sound of thunder and a terrifying lightning strike. A thunderstorm was right on top of the house. Just minutes later, Grace thought she smelled smoke. She followed the smell to the kitchen. The smell of smoke was increasing even though she couldn't see any flames. She looked everywhere. One thing for sure was that there was a fire somewhere in the house. She called 911 and got everyone out of the house. They stood across the street in the pouring rain, still in their pajamas, but safe. The fire department arrived quickly. They could smell the fire, but they couldn't find the flames. Using thermal imaging guns and axes, they found the fire deep within the walls and in the attic. In a little while, the fire was out, leaving 3 rooms lost to smoke, fire, and water damage. Grace and her family considered themselves blessed that the storm woke them from sleep, that emergency services were so quick and that no one had been hurt. Houses, after all, could be repaired. As if that wasn't enough, a week later, she was called into her boss's office. The company was downsizing, and her position was being eliminated. After years of hard work and dedication, she was out of a job. She cleared out her desk and walked to her car with her small box of personal items. Driving home, Grace pondered whether something good could come out of this job loss. Could it be that this was a stepping stone to something better? But the final blow in Grace's year from hell came a few months later. Her marriage, already strained by all the stress and trauma of the past year, finally fell apart and died. She and her husband decided to divorce. In a single year, Grace had cared for her aging parents and her dad fighting cancer. She'd suffered a mini-stroke while driving. She'd lost 3 rooms of her home in a fire. Grace was laid off from her job. And she went through a divorce. It was a perfect storm of grief, fear, and loss. But here's where Grace's story takes a turn. Despite everything she went through, she found a way to rebuild her life. And through it all, she learned some incredible lessons. First, Grace learned the importance of self-care. Her mini-stroke was a wake-up call that her health had to come first. She started meditating, exercising, and eating better, not just for her body but for her mind as well. Second, she realized the power of community. After the fire, her neighbors and friends rallied around her, offering help, support, and even a place to stay. She learned that asking for help is not a sign of weakness but of strength. Third, she discovered a resilience she didn't know she had. Each time life knocked her down, she got back up, stronger than before. Grace remembered the times in her life when she persevered and triumphed. Her brain, backbone, and spirit had carried her through many trials, and they would continue to serve her now, no matter what life threw at her. Thinking this way gave Grace strength. Grace resolved to find a job working from home. This would give her the flexibility to help her parents during the day as needed. She updated her resume and began her search. She rebuilt her home, turning it into a space that truly reflected her new start. And she eventually found peace and closure in her divorce, learning to cherish the good memories while moving forward. So what can we learn from Grace's year from hell? Life will throw challenges at us, sometimes all at once. But it's how we respond to those challenges that define who we are. Prioritize your health, lean on your community, and never, ever underestimate your own strength and resilience. Grace's story is a powerful reminder that even in our darkest times, there is light to be found. Thank you for listening today. If you found this story inspiring, or if you've been through a tough year yourself, please comment below or tell me your story. We'd love to hear from you. Let's keep this conversation going. If you know someone going through their own tough year, share this video with them. It might be the encouragement they need today. Subscribe for more real stories and life lessons.